I want to talk a little bit about the cost that always comes into, and Chris, you have a video about the REAP grants, I believe, right, on your website. And I,
Yeah.
yep. Can you, and we'll go to you, Chris, and then maybe Nick, you can jump on. I think you had some thoughts too. We've been emailing back and forth, but I think, you know, from some of our audience members in the future, they're going to watch this, and I think this would be an important part of the video. Is can you kind of lay out how the REAP grant works and how you handle it, and you know, Nick, maybe how energy conservation source and how you've handled it too.
So REAP stands for, I believe, Rural Energy for America program, and it's a USDA program, but it's aimed not just at farmers or people who make their living only on agriculture, but it's aimed really to benefit rural communities. So it's completely not residential. So farms and businesses in rural areas, and by rural I mean towns of less than 50,000.
Right.
Or not within a major metro area. I mean, you could get a town, you can get close enough, for instance, to Indianapolis or Grand Rapids, where even though you're not in the city, you're no longer rural. So they've got maps. You can go there and enter an address, and they can tell you whether or not you're in an area that applies.
Yeah.
The grant itself is good for up to 25% of project costs.
Okay.
And what we generally see are commercial applications where, you know, when I take a federal tax credit that is for renewable energy of 26% this year, I take 25% potentially from a REAP grant, and then I depreciate the remains. I mean, that system payback is pretty rapid.
Wow.
So,
yeah, it's 100% depreciation in the first year.
Yeah. So
you put those three things together, boy, they're powerful.
So just so there's the federal tax credit, which is 26%. You've got a REAP grant that can cover another 26%. So you're looking at 50% of the costs up front. You've been helped, and then depreciation, you're offsetting taxes with depreciation of that capital asset.
100% the first year, so you don't have to wait for that depreciation.
Oh, really? Okay.
100%, right.
So payback is that, I mean, how many people know about it? Is that something you're still telling people about? Is, you know, the REAP grant?
Chris, you're probably too, but from what little I've seen, and again, I'm sort of half in and half out. It's too bad that Peter isn't here because he's more into it than, you know, but it's so piecemeal. People, I don't think the general public really understands it, number one, or number two, even knows about it. And that 50 less than 50,000 population, I mean, that brings in a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a lot of the surface area of the state.
Exactly.
And I will say that in the ag community, those guys are very much in tune with USDA programs. So a lot of them know it exists. They don't necessarily know all the details.
Right.
The other thing, like any federal grant program, there's a price to be paid for paperwork. It is a not trivial paperwork program, so we generally pair interested clients with a grant writer, which is a fee, but it's definitely worth their time, just because if you're not a paperwork person, this can be totally outside the flow of what you normally do to run your business or your operation, and so it makes you real inefficient. The grant writer kind of earns their keep in that sense.
Interesting. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Chris, I've never done Peter has. I don't want to say it's boilerplate, but a lot of it's boilerplate, right?
It is boilerplate.
They know.
But a lot of it gets to financial data of the operation.
Right, right.
So it's not something that, as a service provider, that I necessarily. I don't know that I want to know all those financial details.
Right.
And some of my customers would feel much more comfortable with me not knowing those financial
Correct.
details.
Correct. I understand.
So, the grant writer, that's probably a good thing.